Good morning, everybody. I'm Melissa Leibowitz. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of an overview of the syllabus. My goal is that you don't have so many assignments due every week, but I do want you to explore the PowerPoints and explore the videos and the articles. And then in your digital journal, at the end, you will just put together some thoughts of the work for the week. You will see under week 1 that there is a template that gives you a little bit of an idea of what to put in your digital journal. So basically, you're going to be reading every week, answering the questions at the end of the chapter. You're going to be turning in a digital journal. And then occasionally here and there, you'll see some other assignments within there. You don't have to worry about anything except for what's under content for that week. I organize all the work week by week. So all you need to do is open week 1, go through there. All your work will be right there for you. I'm very flexible. I would like the work to be turned in on time. I'll reach out to you if there's issues concerning that. I think it's important for you to make sure that your work is that you keep up as best as you can with the chapters, just because they lead up to each other and together. So anyway, do your best, but if there's any issue, please reach out to me. My goal is for you to succeed. And I'm looking forward to getting to know all of you. Hi, what does special education mean to you? What do you think of? Who do you think of when you think of those words? Do you have personal connections to this topic? You personally, have you had struggles or challenges that you needed to overcome or work through? Or is there someone you know, a friend or a family? Just imagine for a minute what your personal connections are. So, this is a really important question. A lot of people overlook this concept. A few slides ago, I asked you who or what you would imagine when we say special needs or special education. And most of the time, people imagine someone who have limiting disabilities or physical disabilities. But exceptionality goes way beyond that. We have all different types of challenges. You have physical challenges, you have blindness, you have hearing impaired students, you have physically impaired students, you have children who have emotional challenges, you have children who are gifted and talented. People forget that all the time. Gifted and talented, the GT children struggle because they sometimes their giftedness is in one area and not in another. Their expectations that people put on them are much higher. They can't always be educated in the typical classroom. They can't always interact with their peers. So it's the exceptional child is just a child that needs assistance, needs additional help or accommodations. So it's just something really important to remember. So as you see, obviously you can read it, but I think a lot of this is very important to go over. There's 4 main components to think about when you're planning for children with different types of needs, exceptional needs. You have the content, the academic content. You have the procedures. How do you deliver this content? My own personal child has a very hard time remembering when something's written on the board and then capturing that memory and writing notes on paper. And so she has a really hard time with that. So she can ask for the notes in advance so that she doesn't have to copy. Sometimes they'll ask other students to do the copying just to give her the notes because it's just a challenge, that her visual memory is a challenge. Instructional environment. The environment is a huge factor in the success of any child in any space, but for children who need the accommodation, sometimes it's too distracting around them and they have to have more space and more peace. Maybe the lighting is too bright. There's so many different things that an environment can affect, so that's really important. Plus, the educators in the space have to be able to manage the situation. The class size is a big part of it, so sometimes children have to be in a different location so that there's less children in the classroom with them. So there's a lot to consider when you're thinking about environment. And then technology. We think of technology as in computers and iPads and phones and things like that, but there's also some other types of technology for children who maybe can't communicate. There are communication boards and tools where they can press on the keyboard and it would verbally speak for them. So there's a lot of things that can be done, and there's a lot of technology available to children. Hi, so these are just really important points to know. FAPE, free appropriate public education. All children have the right and deserve education. So the government is responsible for making sure that that happens. Child Find is the organization that you call. So if you have a concern about a child, it has to be your own child. So if it's not your child and it's a student, the family would have to call. So Child Find is the name of the organization in Maryland that you call when you have a concern, and then they help you get through the process. The Individualized Education Plan, or IEP, there's some video clips in here for you to see a little bit more about that. The Individual Family Service Plan is an IFSP. That's for children birth to 5 or birth to 3. It's a little confusing, but at the age of 3, there is a choice that can be made where you can switch to an IEP or stay on an IFSP. IFSPs are a little bit more informal. They're kind of written on the go. You don't have to have a meeting every time you make a change. So it's a little bit different than the IEP plan, which is, has to have a team meeting with a group of individuals. The IFSP can be modified with the family and the provider together. It's a little bit more appropriate for young children. You have to be educated in the least restrictive environment, LRE. This is a big one, and we're going to talk about this in the next slide as well. Procedural guidelines, these are all the parent rights. They should be given this in writing form, or I think most people do it in writing form still, not just online, and this gives them all their rights written down for them. And parents can obtain an independent educational evaluation if they want. That means that the school system can do a free evaluation, but if a parent has a certain person or place that they want their child to be evaluated for whatever reason, they have that right. The school system should use and usually uses the independent evaluation to make decisions, but sometimes they can say no, that they don't want to. So that's the tricky part. And due process is the law when a parent does not agree with what the school is offering and wants to fight back. The due process is where parents would fight back the decisions that the school system has made. So this is an example of the different environments, the least restrictive environment to the most restrictive environment, and it depends on what that child needs. The goal of the system is that a child can, if they can be successful in an environment that does not require as much support, then they should be with their peers in a more typical environment. But not all children can do that. So general education would be in the regular classroom. A child might need just some help with like some notes or something, but they don't really need anything else. So they can be in the regular classroom, the general education classroom. The general education with in-class support. So that would be somebody would come in, maybe do a little work with them on the side, maybe pull them out a little bit to help them, like some kind of like a tutoring, but in the environment with them in case they need it. A lot of times this happens for behavioral challenges, that somebody will come in and help the child kind of manage the day, but the child would still remain in the general education classroom. A resource room might be somewhere that they go occasionally to have more of a small group quiet space to do their work with a special educator. Special education self-contained classroom within their school. So all the children who need this would be together in one classroom, probably a lot less children. It would definitely be a lot less children. And then the environment can be specialized and set up so that it meets the needs of those children. Not all schools have that option, but for those that do, children can be in their home school if they need it. There's a separate school program. Oh, and to back up one, sometimes children, if they need, they can be in a general education program, but their own homeschool doesn't have that kind of self-contained classroom. They may have to go to the closest one to their home. And then there's a separate school program where they have to go to somewhere different, completely different, a whole different school that really specializes in what they need. And then residential would mean that obviously that they would live in the program. They would live there. A lot of times that also is behavioral or emotional needs, but or very, very limited and needs around the clock care. So there's a reason that I titled this slide controversy. There is a lot of controversy around discipline, even with children who are not displaying additional challenges. There's just a different approach to discipline, depending on who you are and what you believe. There are programs that are rewards based that children earn. I went to a school once where they had technology time and they could earn it based on their behavior and getting their work completed. There's programs that are more punitive, that has more of a punishment approach. There's a lot of challenge when you need hands-on discipline management where you need to restrain children. There's a lot of regulations behind that. If you're ever in a situation where a child would be dangerous to you, to themselves, or to others, unless you calm them down by holding them, you need to talk to who you're working with and the parent, because there's a lot of risk involved in that. So you have to be very careful. You really should never put your hands on children at all. But there are times in schools where they have certifications and specific people that are trained to do that if needed. But there's a lot of controversy. People believe different things. There's a lot of controversy about rewards and punishment in general. So this is just something that, would take a whole class all by itself, but it's something that's very interesting to look into. There's an author by the name of Alfie Kohn, Alfie. I think it's Kohn. He's a really interesting author. I really like him, and he talks about not using rewards or punishments and just really having children be in a realistic setting and working for their intrinsic motivation. And it's really powerful. I believe in that, but there are a lot of different types of beliefs, and there's also a lot of different types of children and environments. So you have to be pretty careful to load up your toolbox with ideas and then make your decisions based on the children and the families that you're working with.